How's it going, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Yet again, it is me, the Buff Nerd, and I am back again because since the last discussion that we had, I have reached yet another milestone in my IT career. As you guys already know, I failed to obtain the CCNA before the Certpocalypse that happened back in February. And for those of you who don't know what the Certpocalypse is, it was basically Cisco's revamping of their certification paths and areas of focus. Now, before all that changed, there was a specific way that you can obtain Cisco certifications. First, you would get the CCNA. You could either get the CCNA by taking 2 halves of it, or you could knock it all out in a composite exam. After that, you will move on to CCNP, which is a Cisco Certified Network Professional, and CCIE if you want to, go to the extreme. What I did last year in April was I obtained the CCENT, which is the first half of the CCNA. And I would have obtained the other half, but life started happening, and I got interested in the Security Plus out of nowhere. So long story short, I ended up, trying to get the certification at the very last second. And unfortunately, I failed to obtain it. February of this year came, and that was the deadline. You had to get either, the whole CCNA through one exam or both halves before that time period. And then after that, everything changed. And when I mean change, like, it changed a lot. And the reason for the change, to sum it all up, was, Cisco had been doing their research, seeing what enterprise companies are looking for in people that, have Cisco certifications, and, some of the areas, these enterprise companies focus in or would want somebody to have knowledge of upon hiring them. So Cisco decided, okay, after of course doing the research, that they're gonna change everything up. They're gonna have specific areas of focus, and they're gonna add a lot more to the CCNA, and they're gonna, intensify their focus in these specific areas like network automation, CCNA security, CCNA design, all of those things. They really kind of just wanted to catch up with the times with this whole revamp. So, since I did not obtain both halves of the CCNA before everything switched over, I had to start from square one, meaning that the first certification that I got, the ICND1, was considered invalid or obsolete. Anyways, another thing that changed when they did this revamp was they made it to where you can no longer get half of the CCNA before obtaining the whole thing. You have to take the whole exam all in one, spend all the money, you either get it or you got to try again, which was a little nerve-wracking, but fortunately I took the punch and decided I'm gonna start all the way over from scratch. And the reason why I decided to start all the way over from scratch was because with the change, a lot of topics were getting added to the CCNA. And the only way I was gonna feel comfortable taking the exam if I start from scratch and do everything over again. And after 4 months of studying, labbing, reading, losing nights of sleep, I managed to pass the CCNA 200-301 a couple of days ago, which is exactly what I needed because, as I told you guys in my most recent video up until now, that I had some serious imposter syndrome after obtaining my role as a network administrator without any Cisco certifications. Now that I got the certification, I feel as if though I can, take a breath, not worry about actually being qualified for my job, and just continue to get familiar with my job. The point of me making the video in the first place was to, of course, let you know that I passed, but I also wanted to give you guys some perspective and my own personal review on how the test was and some of the things that I did to prepare for the test. First thing that I will say is the test was long. And what I mean by long is, okay, when before everything switched and I took the ICND1, there were about 70 questions, around 70 questions. You had, how long did you have? You had about 1 hour and 30 minutes to knock out the test, if I'm not mistaken. And, of course, there were, a different variety of questions that you would have to go through and perform in order to, secure that certification. There will be some performance-based questions, there will be multiple choice, there will be simulations, and this is all in the old stuff. in this new certification, all of that shit is gone. Well, not all of it, but long story short, as you guys probably already know, the simulations have been removed from the CCNA certification exam. And with them removing those simulations, what they did is they added 30 more questions to the exam. So there was over 100 questions, and they were basically like testing, your ability to retain knowledge when it comes to networking, wireless, security, and automation. Wireless, security, and automation actually are the topics that they decided to add to the CCNA. Talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But anyways, the test was long. They give you a whole 2 hours to take the test, and you have to sit there and go through question by question, in order to hit that finishing line. And for me, sitting in front of a screen for 2 hours, answering over 100 questions was not necessarily intense, but it got old. But fortunately, after the mountain of questions, I managed to come out on top. And what's crazy is, it's not that I did better than I expected. When I seen my score, I was a little impressed with myself. Going into the test, I had some doubts. I was a little nervous because I had gotten so comfortable with studying, the material before everything switched, where everything was just routing and switching and, configurations and, VLANs and all that good stuff. Now I gotta learn about wireless. I gotta learn about automation. I gotta learn about, security, which wasn't too hard because I got the Security Plus, but still, that kind of stuff will make anyone nervous. Out of 1,000, I scored 900. Actually, I scored an 895, but we just gonna round it up and say 900, which was pretty good. I was happy with my score, and also I was really impressed with the test, to be completely honest. It was 100 questions, but they were interesting questions. They definitely tested my knowledge, and there was a couple of questions I had to really think about, and I had to do a little road mapping in my head in order to get the right answer. But of course, after you get the right answer, you just move on and you feel good because you feel as if though you know what you're doing. So yeah, I was really impressed with the test. I know there's some people that may have said that it was boring and it's kind of just like oh, do you remember this? Oh, do you remember that? But for me, somebody that's relatively new to the IT industry, kind of, sort of, it was right up my alley. And since of course I did the proper studying and all that good stuff, I managed to knock it out. Some of the study materials that I used in order to prepare for the certification, I used quite a couple of methods. The video series that I went with was the 426 video long CBT Nugget series with Jeremy Chara, Keith Baker, and Network Chuck. And although the video series was very long, they made sure they went over all of the information. And what I mean by all of the information, it's like everything, configuration, and then some. They also touched on topics that weren't even covered on the CCNA, which is good, if you're trying to make this your profession. I also used the official Cisco Cert Guide books, both Volume 1 and Volume 2, of course, to just read along and, go a little bit deeper on some of those topics, just read them and get real comfortable with them. And the last platform that I used that, in my opinion, sealed the deal when it came to me getting the certification was Boson NetSims. Or actually, it was their practice exams for the CCNA certification. In my opinion, that was probably the best resource I could have used when it came to actually taking practice tests. I took quite a few other practice tests, to see if I could get a feel for it. And looking at it in retrospect, now that I actually taken the test, Boson was very spot on with the layout of the questions. They were even kind of tricky with the wording. Of course, similar how it was on the actual test. If I didn't have the Boson practice exams, I probably would have had a little bit of a harder time trying to hit that 825 mark. One thing that I also wanted to talk about in regards to the test was, the difference when it comes to how deep they went on topics. Instead of going deeper on topics, they went really broad. As I mentioned earlier, them adding wireless, security, and network automation. In my opinion, all of those topics are, kind of curveballs because when it comes to routing and switching, you don't think about, configuring wireless LAN controller or interpreting JSON or knowing what XML is, or when it comes to, network automation, knowing the difference between north and south interfaces and all of that stuff. One thing that I will say is, no matter how comfortable you are with navigating, configuring, and troubleshooting routers and switches, make sure you cover all of the topics. Make sure you get just as comfortable with wireless, security, and the network automation side of things. One thing that I really appreciate about the certification was that they covered all of the topics equally. What I mean is, like, I feel as if though they asked a nice amount about routing, a nice amount about switching. They definitely covered the newer topics, to test how much you know, and if you are familiar with certain configurations. They touched on IPv6, of course, because that's in the exam topics. They touched on automation, they touched on JSON, they touched on Puppet, Chef, all that good stuff. So whoever's watching this while getting ready for the certification, make sure you do your due diligence. Make sure you study all of the material. Don't lack in a certain area because you think the test won't talk about it. If you cover everything, then you won't be surprised when the test questions start hitting you. Now that I've gotten my CCNA, now I got a little bit of wiggle room. I'm really wondering the path that I want to go now. Like I told you guys before, being a network engineer was, kind of like my end goal, or at least my ultimate goal when it came to the IT industry. Now, with the pandemic and COVID-19 and all this stuff going on, I'm starting to change things up, and I might go down a different path, and that path might be cloud. What I might do if I don't go for the CCNP is I might get a cloud certification. I might go with Azure or AWS. One of the people that gave me the idea to go that route potentially was Network Chuck. If you're in IT and you're interested in networking, I'm pretty sure you know who he is. He has a YouTube channel called Network Chuck, and right now he's actually producing his own content, his own series, basically getting everybody familiar with all the topics needed in order to pass the CCNA. As I said before, him, Jeremy, and Keith are on CBT Nuggets, and they already have a video series talking about this. So if you do need a video series, I recommend going to check that out. I'll link it in the description below. But for the most part, that's all I really got for you guys today. I kind of just wanted to talk about the CCNA, go over my experience with it, and some of the things that I used to study for it. And also, I wanted to encourage you guys that if this is the path you want to go, with some like really hard studying, it could be even a little bit of passive studying, you could knock this out anywhere from 2 months to 4 or 5 months. For me, it took about 4 or 5 because, of course, I was studying and, actually doing it in my day-to-day job every day. So, studying was a little difficult. But take it from me, if I can do it, you can do it. If you enjoyed the content in this video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment in the section below, and, let me know if you've taken the test. And let me know what you think about it. Let me know your perspective on things, and let me know some of the methods that you use in order to prepare for the certification. As always, stay safe, stay persistent, get the gains, be it in the gym or in the books. See ya.